It's time for the Lovable Me Show! Based on the award-winning book series, I Am a Lovable Me. Get ready to have some fun learning with Lovable, our resident enlightening bug. Are you ready? Close your eyes and let's count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Now open them. Here we go.
Hello and welcome to the Lovable Me Show. I'm Sharon Penchina, your host and author of the award-winning I Am a Lovable Me books for children. We have a terrific guest joining us today, and together we'll be exploring how spirituality and science play a part in empowering us as well as our children. But first, let's do a quick, simplified review of how our mind operates and how we can harness this incredible, powerful tool. So for today's review, I'd like to primarily focus on 2 aspects of our mind. The conscious mind thinks, processes information, and then analyzes it. It identifies information that we obtain through our senses. On the other hand, the subconscious mind is like a computer, and it simply stores all the information in its computer bank. Just like a computer does, it makes no distinction about the information coming in. So when it comes to good, bad, or indifferent, it's all going in. It's also responsible for bodily functions such as breathing, your heart rate, blood pressure, and many of the other systems of your body. When we're relaxed, brainwave activity slows down. We then enter into an alpha theta state. Now, this is a super learning state. This state is one we enter into quite naturally just before we go to sleep and just as we awaken in the morning. This is the state that occurs in deep meditation and during hypnosis as 2 examples of what that might feel like. If we wanted to create, modify, or change a habit, behavior, or belief, the alpha theta state is ideal for us to replicate in order to program or reprogram our mind. Now, repeating affirmations and using visualizations while in an alpha theta state, and then doing that over and over again, will ultimately help embed the new or upgraded programs that you want to place in your subconscious mind or your computer bank. Now, here's an example I think we can all relate to. Remember when you learned the alphabet? When you first learned the alphabet, you learned it 1 letter at a time, and then you strung a few letters together, and by repeating them over and over again, you ultimately got it down pat. Now remember, the subconscious mind is the part that stores the information, and just like a computer, it stores the information exactly as it's being entered into the system. That being said, if I ask you to repeat the alphabet very, very quickly, I know that you can do it with no problem at all. But what if I were to ask you to repeat it by skipping every other letter? Not so easy, eh? Remember, exactly the way you put it in is exactly the way it gets spit out. So I want you to think twice about what you're telling yourself throughout the day. You know, what's your internal dialogue like? Is it positive? Is your mental commentary about your life and the world around you positive? Remember, your subconscious mind is always listening. And that said, let me tell you about our special guest today, Chantelle Renee, because this is something that she knows quite a bit about. Chantelle is a certified clinical hypnotherapist, an author, energy coach, and catalyst for spiritual growth and healing. She facilitates transformational healing and spiritual empowerment through merging spirituality and science, bringing forth empowering wisdom in her book, as well as her transformational work with her clients and seminars. She is the author of the book, Aligning with the Divine. Chantelle, I'd like to welcome you to the Lovable Me Show. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, it's great to have this conversation with, a fellow hypnotherapist, even though I'm not practicing any longer, but I know that's one of the tools that you use in empowering your clients. Well, first off, maybe you could tell us a little bit about you, if I haven't touched on everything, and how that might relate to our topic today in discussing, empowering the parents and caregivers, as well as children, and helping them to support their children in becoming self-empowered.
Yes. So I feel I've always been a human potentialist. And what that means for me is I've always seen that most of us as a child walked around completely disconnected from our spiritual connection. And that really caused a lot of depression and chaos within their lives. And so I wrote a book called Aligning with the Divine, which is basically an ascension guide or an awakening guide, so that we could learn to harness our mental, emotional, spiritual, and energetic energies, and learn to navigate the earth with a little bit more ease and awareness. And so I became a hypnotherapist because it's the most profound and effective way to impart deep change effectively, gently, and permanently. And so that's what I love to help people, is to really to align with their spiritual, emotional, mental, and their energy bodies, and just really empower them so that they are empowered and they can go through their life, and then they pass that on to their children, and so on and so forth. So ultimately, as we evolve our own consciousness, I truly believe that's how our society will transform from the inside out.
That's great. Well, how can you give us some examples, or go into that a little bit deeper? I know we're talking about empowering children, or adults, through, in terms of their mental, emotional, and spiritual power. And you've also talked about energy. And I'm not, I don't want to assume that everyone who's watching really fully understands what that means. And if you could give us any examples of what that is, or perhaps share a story or two with us that might illustrate that.
Well, so ultimately the work that I do, like you used to do, is we're taking out the old programs and upgrading them with more empowering ones. Mm-hmm. So I've been teaching 5 pillars of spiritual awareness that I really feel are fundamental, that we should be taught as a very young age, that would transform the way we live our lives ultimately. And it's teaching our children some metaphysical understandings of, natural law. And that what that does is that makes us accountable for the energy that we put out as well as receive. So we step out of the victim role, mm-hmm. and then we take our power back in that. So natural law is very important to learn about and understand and have awareness of. Emotional intelligence is a big deal. As a child, I think most of us can relate growing up that we were told when we started to cry, shut up, or I'll give you something to cry about, or suck it up, or man up, or we were just taught to stuff our emotions. And what does that do? That creates chaos in our energy fields. It creates chaos in our minds, our heart. And then we start attracting more things just to reinforce those, emotions. So emotions are energy, and emotions are energy in motion. And when we stuff them it creates so much chaos. So ideally, we want to learn how to go through all of the highs and lows, because all of the emotions are beautiful gifts for the human experience, and to not get stuck in the lower vibrations, which ultimately can overtake our life.
Mhm.
Um,
So I was going to say, so it's really about helping to raise an awareness, to shift away perhaps from more primitive responses or reactions of fight and flight, accepting one's feelings, that kind of thing. Is that?
Yes, honoring how we feel. I mean, even when we say someone's a drama queen, that's how they feel in that moment. So we should just allow them to feel how they feel. And the more that we are, because emotions are, we create with our emotions. They're such a powerful, they're measurable. We can measure them.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you, and I hope I'm not. But when you said, it's almost like labeling someone, and I think, it just always reminds me of we can, if we speak about the behavior and not so much about sort of, obviously not labeling it at all is great, but labeling perhaps just the behavior and not the person per se, because I think that also adds to some of the negative programming, especially early on, does it not?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And one other thing that's really transformational to know as children, is to teach them that the universe is mental, that thoughts are things, and they actually are super important to understand. And I actually show every client the Dr. Emoto water molecule study, because this shows us that, mind over matter is truly scientific and factual. So just really empowering them about their thoughts and is it's transformational. Because,
I love that illustration, and I
yeah.
used to use that quite a bit myself. I think it really drives the point home.
Mm-hmm. And it comes down to accountability again. We have to be taught to be functioning and accountable for all of these facets in our life. And the other one that's super important to really, like, I think that you do a beautiful job, is self-love and self-acceptance, because that's the cornerstone for everything that's going to magnetize into our life.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to children, particularly, you've mentioned that one of the topics that you like to address is overcoming bullying.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share some of that with us? Because I think that's such a big factor, and it's something that if parents and caregivers had the tools to assist their children with it, it would make a huge difference.
Well, what I do is I go towards the compassionate route. Is I try to teach, my children and any children that come in contact with, is that hurt people, and children don't know who they are. They're figuring out who they are. And if somebody is acting out, it's because they are seeking attention.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we're empowering our children to look and notice when people are hurting and to not take it on into their own energy. And as an empath, in a lot of people, like healers and nurses, we just soak up everybody else's stuff and we carry it as our own. So again, it's very important for us just to realize that hurt people. Mm-hmm. Because if you're whole and healthy and feeling higher vibrations, you have no desire to hurt anybody. If anything, it's the other, you want to uplift. Right. So again, I think going the compassionate route is the most profound and powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. Altering your or becoming more aware of your thoughts, and making the changes that are going to impact you to be able to put that out in the world is huge. And energetically, with every bit of greater awareness or consciousness that we gain in our lives, that definitely has an effect on energy. And you were talking about energy before and the laws of the universe. Were you referencing things? I don't know if you were referencing science or or referencing, which is a bit of science, the laws of attraction, those types of things. What were you really getting at over there?
So for me, I really resonate with the 7 Hermetic principles, and they're in my book. I cover them in detail as best as I could just to make them very digestible. And it's the law of attraction, yes, but it's more like attracts like, and also like the gender, law of gender. I should have a list because I can't think of them all right offhand, but they're really, really fundamental, like the law of relativity, the law of vibration. These should be taught to us as children. And so I'm very passionate about trying to open up, the field to our teachers, because it's going to empower them to be better, learn better, be able to hold their focus better. It's going to be empowering on multiple levels. So we should at least be able to explore it, where we explore governmental laws. So why don't we explore natural laws, cosmic laws?
Yeah. And, I think, adults do, and most children do. When you have a conversation with them about these types of topics, they sort of naturally gravitate to it, because especially and I don't even want to limit it to the youngest, because the youngest are kind of walking around in that natural state as it is. But as children get older, there's such a great influence from the outer world that, that's where, the judgment and a lot of critiquing comes in, and a lot of self-doubt and all of that. But I think when you have a conversation about topics from that sort of esoteric or spiritual, aspect, people naturally gravitate to that. It's surprising, because I don't know if you find, but when I was in practice, I can remember having clients come in, it was a range of clients, but sometimes I'd get someone coming in who had a real type A personality, or they're just coming in because they want to see if this really works, and they think that it's just not going to work for them at all. And very often those are the clients that I had that had the deepest and most profound response to using altered states, and to going within and literally discovering a part of themselves that in their day-to-day life, they weren't really accessing as fully. So I don't know if you found that to be the case as well during the time you've been practicing.
Yes, absolutely. But it really helps for those kind of clients, is to really truly explain that all healing is self-healing and all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. So your belief system of it not working, it's not going to work. And so oftentimes I won't take the client on. I'll make them go think about it. And then when they're ready, they come back, because there's no need to work with somebody who has that belief system in there that it's not going to work. But they're there in the office because they have a spark of hope and curiosity.
Yeah. And and sometimes that can just be enough, and even just experiencing, quieting, going internal, and, there's so many surprises that occur, I think, when you're working with altered states and working with, multitude of personalities. So what can you tell us about, how you use, hypnosis or self-hypnosis, or how the viewers can use self-hypnosis perhaps on their own to obtain positive and powerful mindset?
Well, it really comes down to, again, accountability and learning there's an exercise that you can do. So you just kind of practice. You can look at the wall, but then practice visualizing that you're up here, like above yourself, and you're kind of witnessing. And then you're going to start to put yourself in the awareness of monitoring and watching your thoughts, feelings, emotions. So like the day you start, okay, this is the day. I'm going to see how I'm actually talking to myself, what I'm actually feeling, what I'm putting into the world, and what I'm soaking in. So it's like homework. You have to ease your way into expanding your awareness. And we could do this in hypnosis. I can give the suggestion that you're residing in your higher awareness, and you are navigating your emotional state, your thoughts gracefully and effortlessly. And that does help, because then they're always thinking about, oh, I just said my metabolism is so slow and it's always been so slow. So that's a command that I just gave my body. So it
Uh,
really just helps them to lock on and start to think for themselves in a different direction.
yeah. Would you be amenable to illustrating? You know, we talked about the illustration using water, and I think that if for those who are not familiar with that doctor's work, I think it would be great if you know. Is that something you could do now to?
Yeah, go over it real quick.
Yeah, because I think that really drives the point home, and
It does.
you
It
know,
does. Yeah. So whenever I have clients, I'm also like, I educate my clients. It's very important to me that they walk away feeling very empowered, and because it's going to work better for them, hypnosis. So
Mhm.
Dr. Emoto did a study on water in different glasses, and he had various people focus on each glass. Each glass would have different names. So one would say fear, one would say hate, one would say love, one would say gratitude, one would say war, one would say peace. You
Mhm.
get the idea. And so what he found is, this isn't labeled properly, but um, what he found is that the water molecules that had the higher vibrations of joy, gratitude, and love were perfectly harmonized, symmetrical shapes. And keep in mind, 70% of our body is water. So really what you think about, you're bringing about, and sometimes we have these little programs that we don't even know are there.
Mhm.
So the importance of just showing this to people, it, like you said, it drives the
Yeah.
idea. It's science. So I love
The
bringing.
crystals are they're very multifaceted, very
Mhm.
detailed, multifaceted, and very clear for, as you say, you know, if we were having feelings of love, expressing them or thinking about it, or even writing the word love down. And of course, you know, if we energize it, you know, through feelings,
Mhm.
it holds a higher vibration, because everything vibrates, everything is energy, and that will vibrate at a higher level, producing that type of crystalline, you know, looks like a snowflake.
Yeah.
And the other is so muted, and so, you know, it looks sickly. So you
Yeah.
can just imagine that if your body is composed of mostly water, and then the cells in the body, you know, I always think of it almost like looking like a cell. It's like a cell of in your body, and that's what's occurring, you know, when
Yeah.
we, you know, are in a fearful, stressful, you know, angry, holding in anger, you know, fear, and extremely stressed. That's the impact it's having on our body. So
Exactly.
yeah, that's great. I really appreciate that. Is there anything, any tips that you can offer the audience that they can kind of walk away with, you know, certain, any tips that you find seem to be instrumental or helpful when you're working with your clients that might be a little takeaway today?
Yeah, I have two things actually. So just to follow up on what you were just talking about, I always show my clients this too.
Mhm.
And what that is that's the human aura when it's residing in a contracted energetic state, which is fear, and we attract more of that, and it keeps us small. And then when we expand into higher awareness, more light comes into our body. We're vibrating at a higher frequency. That's where we really ultimately want to reside, because that's where we find joy, balance. We can manifest. We believe in ourselves and all of that. So I always show my clients that that's not the walk away. But the other
Yeah.
thing that I really love to teach my clients, it's called the inner smile technique, and it's based off of the universal heal tao system. And I'm just gonna, so basically, ultimately what we're doing is we're using our chemistry to amplify our frequency. It's learning to harness joyful emotions to
Mhm.
basically charge our system. And so through meditation, I'm going to show you this picture because it's a pretty good one to, so it's a
Mhm.
woman, and it's her intestine, it's like all of her organs. And
Uh-huh.
so when you can do this in 5 minutes, you can do this in the shower. You start focusing on just one thing, you're grateful, and you just start pulling in that energy and just charging it and charging it. You get better at it as you do it. And then you can just imagine some gold light or whatever light you want going in through the top of your crown all the way through your body. But each location you hit, like your crown, you smile. Because when we smile, it activates chemicals in the body, feel good hormones, and you go all the way through your body. You might feel a little weird at first, but you're really mastering your own system. So there a lot of healing can take place in meditation. So just learning to smile into your body is really cool.
Yeah, it sounds like we're charging our battery up, and we're lighting up the bulb or whatever as brightly as we can,
Yeah.
So it's all really great stuff. How would the audience reach you or connect with you? Is there anything that you want to share specifically about what you're doing or your book?
You can find me on my website, chantellerenee.org. I'm currently touring with 2 other women. It's called the Energy Enlightenment Tour. We're going around kind of teaching energy principles, natural healing. It's a lot of fun. You can learn about that. We might be coming to an area near you.
Is that through the United States, or are you out of the country?
We've been asked out of the country. We're not there yet. We're still just kind of staying in the Midwest area, because that's a lot of places that there's a lot of people waking up right now and they feel like they're losing their minds. So we're just trying to help people get through that transition. Mm-hmm. And then I will be presenting. I do all kinds of, you can find my events on my website if you want. And I'm happy to reach out. And I have a Facebook page where I share inspiration every day, Chantelle Renee. And
yeah, that sounds terrific. Well, before I close the show out, if there's, anything else that you want to add, now is the time.
Okay. To refer back to children as parents, if you could just open their mind up to their energy body, like you can just show them a basic picture of the human energy field. It makes them understand that everything is energy, and it's going to put them in their power pretty quickly. And we don't have to talk about it for, months and months. We just lock on because it's our natural state.
Yeah, maybe doing a little, if you take a couple of minutes out each day, it really doesn't take long, maybe 2 to 3 minutes. And a parent or caregiver could do a short little meditation, and even, walk their child through those various centers and sort of guide them until they're sort of, able to just do it on their own, or maybe they'll be the guide for their parents or caregiver.
Yeah.
That would be a great way to go with that. It's a great start. And, I just want to remind everyone just to think about, what you're putting out, what you're saying. Your words really matter, and they do have an impact ultimately on your physicality, your mental, emotional, and spiritual state. So be mindful. And I want to thank you for joining us today. That went really quick. So thank you for being here, Chantelle. Look forward to catching up with you after the show.
Okay.
Thank
you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. And I just want to say to the audience, please be sure to check out all the I Am a Lovable Me books today by clicking on the link at the very end of this video. They are available in hardcover as well as audio iBooks. And you'll never miss any of our great shows by watching us on Facebook, YouTube, or Periscope every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you have a topic you think parents and caregivers want to hear about and would like to be a guest on my show, just go ahead and contact me on Facebook. I'm your host, Sharon Penchina, and I'll be back next week with more self-empowerment tips for you. Thank you all for joining in, and be sure to have a fantastic day.
Thank you for watching The Lovable Me Show. Also, if you have any questions for Lovable, go ahead and ask away. Don't forget to visit us next week, right here in the Facebook bug.